Hello, this is Raziel Cohen from NDFtraining.com. Today we're going to be talking about single hand shooting. Single-hand shooting is something that a lot of people don't practice because, frankly, a lot of us suck at it. And unfortunately, although that's the case, it's something that needs to be practiced over and over again because it's obviously a very important skill. Now, a lot of people associate one-handed shooting with assuming that the person is going to be injured. And if I'm assuming I'm not going to get injured, so why would I practice it? First of all, if you're carrying a gun, you also have to take into account that there is a possibility of you getting shot as well or stabbed as well. So don't think that you're like invincible. The other thing is that it doesn't necessarily mean that you've been getting shot or you've been getting wounded. The other aspect could be is that if you're trying to get someone out of the way, like we spoke in previous videos when we spoke about clearing someone out of the way, or in an environment where you're trying to hold someone back, or you're trying to control another weapon, or if you have multiple assailants, using one hand could be very important to control an environment and the person that you're trying to deal with. Now, for those of you who don't know, there are actually 4 reasons why we keep our finger off the trigger. So although you might have only been taught that there's one reason, there are actually 4. We're going to cover one of the other reasons today. The other reason is that under stress, usually people are speaking casually, they talk with their hands, so I'm using both hands to communicate. Now, that translates under stress in the real world when you're using a firearm. So now, if I was trying to grab someone out of the way and I had my finger too low on the trigger guard area, I might want to do that same grabbing motion with my right hand because that's what my left hand is doing, is grabbing someone and moving them out of the way. So this is a time that it's very important to practice trigger discipline, especially when you're doing this drill in dry fire, because you want to make sure that your finger is very high and clear of the trigger guard. So if you're practicing that motion, you won't have that issue. So now there's no perfect way of actually drawing the gun single-handed and using it, because obviously the gun was meant to be used with 2 hands, and that's the training method that has been taught over the years. However, what we're going to do is we're going to draw from our holster, and you can either practice the grabbing motion that we spoke about before in previous videos when we're clearing someone out of the way, or the idea is that you want to be able to have as much control of the gun as possible. Now, obviously, you're trying to get as much control of your right hand like we would usually get on a regular grip. So although we're missing our second hand that usually completes that grip, still make sure that that hand is going to give you control. Now, I prefer to still have my thumb up in this position, so in the event that I'm able to get my hands back into the regular position, I'll just be able to fill that hole, versus if you try to get a regular lower grip as if you're just grabbing something random, then you're kind of blocking yourself and you could damage the potential grip you're able to gain back if you're actually able to get it. So we're going to grab the gun. We're going to try to have our hands clear of the gun area because we don't want to end up muzzling ourselves. We're going to point, usually depending on the distance we're going to be shooting at, and usually at the distances you'll be shooting at with pistols anyway, it's okay to have a little bit of a cant in the gun. And the benefit in this case is if you have that little bit of cant, instead of having it straight up and then you have to really make sure your body's centered to be able to see your red dot or to be able to see your sights, you can have that slight cant that can also give you a little bit more control of that recoil because it's not in just the center line of your entire body. So this has been one-handed shooting. Now, this is kind of one of those drills that would be much more ideal to be able to do at the range for a couple of different reasons. First of all, sometimes when we're not realizing how our grip is, you could realize that your rounds are going to be impacting differently than where your sights usually are. So that's something that obviously in live fire you're going to notice, as well as also recoil control. The reason why we have 2 hands on the gun to give us the best control is that for follow-up shots, that's what's important. To be able to get multiple shots on target rapidly is we need to have a lot of recoil control. Now, with one hand, you're reducing that obviously because you're only using one hand for that. So when you go to the range and you start practicing single-hand weapons manipulation or single-hand shooting, using one hand and realizing how long it takes you to get back on your sights is very important. So obviously this would be more ideal to practice at the range. This is Raziel Cohen with NDFtraining.com. Thank you for watching.